Captains of Industry, brought to you by Airtel.
Welcome back. Now, prior to joining Samsung, Deon Liebenberg was the Managing Director and Vice President for Africa at BlackBerry, a research immersion. These days, there's probably something you don't want to say too loudly. He's credited with driving the sales growth for the company, though, the market penetration and product development for BlackBerry across Africa. Today, he's taken that kind of industry knowledge with him to Samsung. Deon Liebenberg is our Captain of Industry tonight. Now, Deon, I know you have a very strict restraint on trade, and you don't really want to talk about where you come from, but you do come from there, and our BlackBerries crashed on an unprecedented level this week. I think people who were very critical were saying, why is management just not explaining to the consumer what happened? Now, you know the ins and outs. Your view, what happened?
Unfortunately, Rata, you know I can't answer that question. What I can say is I recommend everyone gets a Samsung as soon as possible.
That's really, really cheeky. But nonetheless, you are credited with having taken the BlackBerry out of the corporate world onto the streets. Just give us a sense of the strategy. When you look at a product and you say, do you know what, this will really sell at a retail level. This will really change how people live their lives. How are you going to do that for Samsung? Even
if I look at what we're doing right now in Samsung, if you, products and services, many products are very similar. You know, if you look at the specifications, you look at cars, you take a Lexus and a BMW and a Mercedes and you park them next to each other, they start looking the same, behaving the same. So really, truly, you need to understand clearly what the consumer's behavior is going to be, what will attract them to the product, and form some sort of emotional link on exactly what are the differentiations and how can that product, like our latest smart TV, how will that meet the requirements of the consumer? And stay core to exactly what the product stands for, stay core to what the brand stands for, and ensure that you deliver what the consumer wants directly.
Are people very brand conscious when it comes to these kinds of products, especially on the electronic side? I mean, I remember buying my fridge. I wasn't going for, you know, brand X or Y. I was just looking for a fridge that was a little bit computerized, that had a silver facade. I would have bought it from anybody.
And it depends who created the silver facade for the first time. So you have to constantly innovate. I do believe people are very brand conscious, and I think specifically if you think about the consumer driving the industry today and looking across Africa, less than 50% young people are extremely brand conscious. We are no more just isolated in Africa. We are a part of the global economy, and we have access to all the latest trends. So I believe things have changed significantly, from buying a fridge to a TV to your latest smartphone. People are brand conscious. But the secret lies in if you can form some sort of relationship between all of those things. If I can use my phone and I can just swipe to the TV, the latest pictures that I've got, which we refer to as all share, or share multiple screens at the same time, or print to a specific printer. The convenience of that technology just helps you to become more efficient, and I think relevant, and that's what we're driving for.
Where did you learn what you know? Where were the greatest lessons? Because obviously we've just said you were research immersion, Vodacom, Telkom, so you've really worked the full spectrum of the tech industry in this country.
I wasn't privileged enough to go and study directly after school, so I took up a role with Telkom directly out of school. And I think part of my learning was, it was a very tough learning, because it was a learning of, you know, previously state-owned company who's privatized very fastly, trying to move. And at the same time, I started studying at the University of the Free State part-time. And for me, being able to take the theory and the practice as I was learning, you know, I did my BE Econ degree, I followed up with an honors degree, and then also with my MBA, all part-time. And I could really recommend to anyone to do that, because theory versus practice just merges, and it just becomes so natural. I think that's part of it. And at a very young age, I was working. I was active at the age of 13, 14, running 3 jobs, which I quite enjoyed.
You know, it was, all due respect, many people would say to really make it in ICT, actually it's the one industry where you don't need formal theoretical training. If you look at Bill Gates, he dropped out of Harvard at the last minute because he just felt that that was all a waste of his time. He wanted the practical application, to sit and work on the various systems until he refined his understanding technically of how it works. And apparently that's the one area where you really need ingenuity versus a certificate.
I support that, and I can say 2 things about whatever you do in life. You have to physically understand why you're doing it. You have to have the passion for it. So if you don't have that passion and love for what you're going to do, then don't do it. So in any environment, entrench yourself in the product and the brand, understand why you're doing it, love it, and then do it because it makes sense to do.
Do we have genii in this country? Everybody right now is offering eulogy after eulogy for Steve Jobs, his genius, his leadership, his innovation, his stubbornness, that it takes that sort of a maverick to really revolutionize a product for the world to use. Where are our Steve Jobses in Africa?
I think they are in every single environment in Africa. You know, I've met some amazing people, and I think if we can just pick up those opportunities and give people platforms to start performing. If you go to Kenya, to the Innovation Hub, and you go and see what happens there, the amount of technology innovation that's taking place. If you go to Pretoria and you speak to the people at the local innovation hubs and the universities, I think the platform is the challenge. You know, unemployment being high across the continent, access to money to study further, access to just a platform to say, I've got this amazing idea, what do I do with it? We need to, as the industry, we need to allow people and form and pave the way forward for people to just be able to be heard. And I think the internet is going to do that, because 4 years ago, internet was just consumed. People are adding to the internet, so the content is generated by the users, and that's where
I'm glad you've raised this issue, because, you know, when we started talking about open source, there were big concerns about how people will come up with great ideas, but ultimately a great idea will get gobbled up by a big multinational who'll just acquire the rights and then develop it with the infrastructure that they have. And that also puts off a lot of people from wanting to generate new ideas, because there's a sense that they've got to be part of a system as opposed to be independent. And as we talk about entrepreneurship and people being allowed to spread their wings, it's a catch-22.
And if you speak to local economy, and you speak to you know, the Minister of Telecommunications and the Minister of DTI, the message is very clear. South Africa and across the continent, industry like ourselves, Samsung and other companies, we need to empower and support people. Where there's ideas, foster that, give access and allow people to develop. And through our partner program, we're constantly doing that.
You have a peculiar habit of waking up at 4 a.m. every morning, winter or summer,
except when I'm on holiday
or shine. Why is that?
It's for the last probably 7 years. It's just happened, and I'm glad to see that one of my mentors, Robin Sharma, which has published so many books, has also indicated that wake up an hour earlier, and it'll take you a week to get used to that, but you'll get so much more out of life.
Can I just interrupt? Did you know who else does it?
Who else? No, I don't.
Nelson Mandela also apparently wakes up at the crack of dawn every day. It's something he picked up when he was in prison and he didn't let go of. What is it about waking up before the sun rises that clears your mind?
Waking up when everyone else is asleep is so different to waking up with an alarm, rushing out and just rushing. So your entire day starts as a rush. If you wake up, you organize your mind, you have your quiet time, you reflect on yesterday, you clear your mind, and do a little bit of physical exercise, I think it just sets yourself up for success. It's really something that I can highly recommend. It's tough to start. It takes exactly 1 week, and then you can't stop. So even in holidays, I try to not sleep. I wake up at 4, but I get back in bed again, which is really nice.
Yeah, especially for your wife. Okay, so
exactly.
So what is it that you're contemplating at 4 o'clock in the morning as you need to clear your mind, organize your day? What sort of thoughts are going through your head? Are you meditating? I'm
not a big meditator, but what I do is I try and understand what is in my mindset. What do I have to do today, both personally as well as at a work level? Because a lot of people don't understand. People talk about this work-life balance.
Yeah.
I don't believe that exists. I believe that work is part of life, and you know, the average person in any fast-moving environment spends at least 12, 13 hours working, which means that is so a part of your life, and you need to take that and balance that with your personal life and your family time and why you're here, you know. I always ask people in my organization, do you work to live or do you live to work? And people don't really understand that question, because most of us work because work is just who we are.
And it's so important to have something that grounds you, like family,
like my wife
hobbies, or things, things that you love. Because when you work and you're generating an income, you've got a targeted focus as to how you want to use your money, and I think that's what I understand by work-life balance. Talk to us about your family, because I know outside of your work they are your first love, and when you took a sabbatical from Research in Motion, transitioning to Samsung, you spent a lot of time at home just focused on being a dad, even,
yes,
can I say it? Can I say it?
Yes.
A house husband.
I was a house husband for a while, and it was really awesome. It was at the same time as Master Chef, so I tried all the recipes, I must be honest. It was difficult to stop. I think it's really important that you understand that you are a father, and you are a husband, and you are a partner in work. And at work, people look at you for leadership and mentoring and guiding a business, and it's absolutely no difference at home. You know, if you do not recognize your role as a mentor and a father in the environment, I think it's a sad situation. So yeah, I try and I work extremely hard like everyone else, but every 5 to 6 weeks I do try and take up the day and just focus on just family and who we are.
Are they techies, your family?
My daughter is a techie. She's a little bit of a geek. My son, no, he's not. So she's been nagging me for the latest Samsung. And I must be honest, I only gave them phones about a year ago, where their friends have had phones for so long. But yeah, you know, I believe you can't take coffee and milk, put it together, stir it up and get tea. My family's part of myself and my wife. They've got her creative flair, and they've got a big part of my geekiness, I think.
So that creative flair, you've told us about MasterChef. So what sort of recipes were you coming up with then?
I can do a really good beef stroganoff.
Who can witness this for me?
I'll have to take that. I'll have to take you up on that. But really, you know, I'm a real South African. I like to just have a braai, a barbecue, and just enjoy the time.
Obviously, you've got a long career ahead of you because you're fairly young, and you've done exceptionally well thus far. And there is the risk of saying, I've done it all. There's nothing else for me to do. I don't know what your perspective on life is, but what are the challenges you still have to confront? It may be in your personal life, it may be in exercise, it may be in work, but where are the areas where you think, I wouldn't have lived my life fully if I don't do this yet?
I think in a market or an environment where we live, if I just look at the economy and technology, everything moves so fast. If you would have asked me this question 6 years ago, it would have been a different answer. So I think the next venture will just appear. I live in the here and the now. I do plan ahead quite aggressively, but I think I really enjoy my stay here at the moment at Samsung. I've only been there for 100 days. It's an amazing company with amazing people, so many young, dynamic, qualified, graduated people, and we're going to go places.
I've really enjoyed speaking to you, Deon Liebenberg. You've been open, you've been warm, you've been focused, you're clearly a strategic thinker for the company. You're really conscientious, and I love the love you have for your family, and I wish you well in your journey ahead. Thanks so much for being with us. The views there of Deon Liebenberg. He's been our captain of industry tonight. 100 days in the hot seat as managing director for Samsung. Due to a restraint of trade, he's not going to tell us what's going on at Research in Motion, but we do know he's been credited with really being innovative and dynamic in taking that product into the mass market in Africa, and it's that kind of ingenuity that Samsung is hoping to draw from as he takes the company forward in leaps and bounds. The company's basic aim is to penetrate Africa aggressively and to ensure that by 2015 their market share of Africa is as big as their market share in a big country like China.